Hi, I'm Scott from MoneyNerd, and today the big question is my debt statute barred? Now, you might have a really old debt and you're wondering, do you need to pay that debt? And you might be wondering if you can still be taken to court for that debt. I'm going to answer all of those questions in this video. So, what are we going to look at? What is exactly statute barred debt? When does the timer start for statute barred debt? And how you can tell if your debt is eligible to be statute barred. At the end, I've got a bonus where we look at very specific situations where you can and can't be statute barred. Before we get into it, please subscribe. I do lots of videos about debt. Number one, what is statute barred debt? Well, English law says that creditors have a fixed period of time to take you to court, and that period of time is typically 6 years. If they don't take you to court in that 6-year period, then the debt is deemed statute barred. You may also have heard the phrase time-barred debt. This is exactly the same. If the creditor doesn't take action within those 6 years, then they are legally no longer allowed to take you to court. The debt still exists in the eyes of the law, but they can't enforce it through the courts. Number two is, when does the timer start? So a good way to think about statute barred is it's a timer for 6 years, and that timer starts when the creditor has a cause for action. Essentially what a cause for action means is the point in which a creditor can take you to court. This will depend on the type of debt and what is in your contract when you signed the credit agreement, but it's typically when you stopped making payments. As of January 2019, a new law was passed that said that the timer for statute barred actually now starts when you are served a default notice from the creditor. So if you've received that letter, the default notice, that's when the creditor can legally take you to court, and this new law is saying that you can start the timer from receiving that default notice. This means if you're making repayments to your debt, then the creditor has no cause for action and they have no reason to take you to court. So if you're making regular monthly repayments, then it can't be statute barred. It's only once you've stopped making regular payments that the debt can be considered statute barred. An important point to note is if you acknowledge that debt in any way or you make repayments towards that debt, then that 6-year timer restarts. So how can you tell if your debt is statute barred? Well, the good news is that most credit within the UK can be statute barred. So things like credit cards, loans, overdrafts, catalogue debt, all of those types of debt are eligible to be statute barred, but you do have to meet some quite strict criteria. So that criteria is you haven't made a payment within the last 6 years. The cause for action is over 6 years ago, so that might be they've issued that notice of default, or they're within their contractual eligibility to take you to court. The third one is that you haven't acknowledged the debt in 6 years via writing. And the fourth one is that they haven't taken you to court, they haven't requested a CCJ for you. If you meet all of those 4 criteria, then your debt is eligible to be statute barred. Other things to consider are if it's a joint loan or if you've taken out that credit with a partner, even if it's an ex-partner, if they've been making repayments within the last 6 years on that debt, it's not eligible to be statute barred. Also, acknowledging the debt has to be in writing. So if you've discussed it over the phone and you've acknowledged it that way, then legally that is not an acknowledgement of debt. Note, if you've done a PPI claim or something like that, then that often does count as being as acknowledging that debt. The cause for action is the most difficult part to determine when you're looking at statute-barred debt. So what I've done, I've linked to National Deadline, who's a charity. They've got a fact sheet on their website which makes it a bit easier to identify if the creditor had cause for action. As a bonus, we're going to look at 3 important scenarios for statute-barred debt. The first one is secured loans, so a loan against a house or a car. Unfortunately, these are not eligible for being statute-barred. The second scenario is for a mortgage shortfall. So for example, if you sold your house and the capital from that sale was unable to pay off the mortgage that you had on that house, then you'd have a mortgage shortfall. The statute of limitations for this debt is 12 years and not 6 years. And then finally, if there's VAT or council tax, then you're not eligible for statute-barred debt for those debts either. I've been Scott from MoneyNerd, and if you've enjoyed this video, please hit subscribe, and I shall see you in the next video.